Allison, you have to explain something to me.
What?
You speak for a living. You're on my podcast. You do your podcast. And yet when we do these commercials, you're super you don't want to do them.
I don't want to do them.
Why not?
You spring them on me. I like to be prepared. I'm a perfectionist, Taylor, and you like all this improvisational stuff. I'm not a naturally funny person, okay?
Well, that's what Patreon is for. Patreon.com/Forte Catholic. It's all the content like in the normal show where you're not prepared. And
right, yes. It's where you put all of my bloopers.
And you have a lot.
I know!
Patreon.com/Forte Catholic. You can help support the show. You also get behind-the-scenes content from every episode, bloopers, bonus content like behind the scenes with our guests, our co-hosts, and Allison being angry at me.
Yes, lots of eye rolling.
You can't hear that, but whatever. Patreon.com/Forte Catholic.
When I do it, you can.
What's up? And welcome to Forte Catholic. This is your host, Taylor Stroll. I am in the studio with none other than Mrs. Allison Sullivan.
Hey.
Allison, you had homework.
What?
You had homework.
I did not.
Yes, you did. The last time you came on the show,
I had no homework.
I always describe...
Well, I didn't do it.
You didn't?
No.
Well, you're just like me in every school I ever went to.
What was my homework?
Every show, I described the Red Sea Radio Studios. And it used to be like the Stellar Red Sea Radio Studios, or like the Galactic, the National, the headquarters. So for a long time, I said intergalactic, and I didn't know what was better than that, So I just kept saying intergalactic.
It's a good word.
So
if I were an alien, I would appreciate that. Oh, not even just because it's intergalactic. I like the way it sounds. I like that. Intergalactic.
I think it's inter if you're going to.
Well, fine. You stickler. I also like the word ligament. It's just a good word, ligament.
Well, this took a weird turn. All right. I'm proud of you.
Okay.
How about... Wait. No. We have to stop. Why is ligament so fancy to you?
We'll say it a couple of times.
Ligament.
See? Come on.
Ligament.
You're enjoying yourself, I can tell.
I'm always enjoying myself. I can say any word. Crustacean.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is. So did you do your homework? Did you think of a good name?
Astronomically, cosmically stellar.
Well, you did it. You also stole one of my words that I said already, but I'm very proud of you.
I think the intergalactic had me all spaced out.
Oh, wow. I think we're going to end the show now. Forever. This is it. We're actually not going to. Do you know what happens next week, Allison Sullivan?
What? Is it an anniversary?
Episode 150
what?
Of the show. Episode 150.
Get out of here.
And here's what's cool.
Who's the co-host?
Father Anthony's the co-host.
Fine.
The guest, I think. What do you mean fine? You don't want to hang out with me more than once a month. You tell me this often.
I do for celebration.
For celebration. Well,
if there's cake involved.
There's not going to be cake because if I bought a cake, Father Anthony's on an iPad in Pittsburgh. He wouldn't be able to eat it anyway. But
watch, I'm going to bring you cake. That would be so nice of me.
Do it. Come to the show. If you come to the show and bring cake,
okay.
you can come on for 4 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
4 minutes?
4 minutes. We only
it's
got
like TV, not radio.
Wow. No, we got cool things coming. I've been working on a redesign, a whole rebranding for the show, and I'm really excited.
Am I allowed to say that I saw?
You saw it. You did see it.
I did see it.
You did see it.
It's so good.
Ironically enough, I actually found, I got the email while I was at your house.
Totally.
So you were the first person to see it other than me
so
who designed it. So
I punched you. I straight up punched you.
You did. It hurt. My arm was sore for 3.5 days. I remember because halfway through the fourth day, I was like, my arm doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
But that's coming out next week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really excited about it.
Awesome.
We also have a pretty cool guest that I'm not going to say. But tune in next week, episode 150. I cannot believe the world has allowed this to continue.
It is crazy.
Episodes.
They're so tolerant.
They really are.
Such kind, forgiving people.
Hello, listeners. I love you. I had a crazy week, Miss Sullivan.
You did.
I really did. So Thursday.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Do you need some therapy?
I do. I might,
bit,
actually.
maybe. Okay.
But I can't afford it, so this is it. We're going to do it right now. You're my therapist.
Okay.
Wednesday, I started.
I'm in.
I went. Everybody had their first day of school. My kids had their first day of school. I actually had my first day of school because I back as the campus minister at St. Joseph's Catholic School here in town. So I had my first day of school. And like everybody in the first day of school, I apparently was nervous and couldn't sleep much. That wasn't the answer. It's just that I haven't been going to sleep all summer at a decent hour. So I had to like reset my body clock.
Yeah, right.
So I got 4 hours of sleep
New
that
schedule.
night.
Yeah.
And then I led a retreat all day, 15-hour day, speaking, leading words. I gave the same talk 4 times in a row, 30-minute talk. I talked for 2 hours straight.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly to kids that didn't want to hear it. And then
That's always a little rough.
4 hours sleep that night, 4 hours sleep the next night. Went into the Encounter Texas conference, which was phenomenal. We're going to talk about that here in this first segment. But I got 6 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep, 6.5 hours of sleep. So I didn't sleep much. So Daddy was tired. So I got home yesterday at 5:30 p.m. I got into my bed at 5:31 p.m. I hung out with the kids. Like they came and like took turns coming to lay with me and kind of tell me about their weekend because I wasn't there. And then at about 5, I don't know, right before 6 o'clock, I fell asleep for about 4 minutes. And then my wife came in, took the baby, and I promptly fell asleep. I woke up again at 1:30 in the morning.
Wow. Yeah.
That was by itself was the most sleep I had gotten all week. And then I slept from 1:30 until 6:30 this morning. So welcome to Forte Catholic, everybody.
Sleep deprivation is a form of torture. I mean, it's the real deal.
Well, if that is true, then it is God who is torturing me right now because all of this work has been for him. Thanks, Jesus. But I am glad the blessing was last night and most of yesterday that I got to sleep because this show would be super boring if I was as tired as I was at 1:30 this morning.
I don't know. I mean, I could picture you kind of loopy and entertaining, perhaps. No?
I think.
What do you like when you're tired?
People like it when my filters are down. But
yeah, I mean, I see how it might be a good time.
I want to get to episode 150 at least. But here's the deal. I do want to talk about the Encounter Texas conference. Have you heard of this conference before?
I've been.
Wait, you went?
I did not go. This is the first year I've missed in a long time. And I was super bummed about it because my dear friend, Michelle Benzinger, was speaking. So I was really sad to miss that.
I met her for the first time.
Isn't she lovely?
Yes. I feel like I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
Did you make that up?
I am going to go ahead and take credit for that. That rendition.
Allison Sullivan, singer-songwriter, podcaster.
So,
Mom.
Yeah, no, I adore her. We've spent some time together on a lake. So.
Wait, I didn't know this about you. I knew you were like a fan of hers. I didn't know you were like friends. Wait, what lake and why and how?
Really?
Sure. Is this a secret?
No, it's just I'm okay. I'm counting how many of us there are. There's a group of 5 of us. Fierce, tender women.
Like
who
you know what is great about fierce and tender?
What?
It's how I like my chicken nuggets.
Oh gosh. Does that mean spicy? We're a little spicy.
Spicy, hot sauce, but like super tender.
No, there's a group of like 5 of us, and we just keep in touch and pray for one another. And we were in prayer for her that whole weekend. So I'm glad that she had a really special weekend as well. It sounds like she did.
You know what I just pictured?
What?
Do you watch the Marvel movies? I feel like you don't.
The what?
The Marvel movies.
Oh,
like the superhero movies.
You're right that I don't.
I'm always right. So there's in the last 2 movies there have been these like in the middle of the big fight they like zoom in on all the women that are all fighting together. What I want somebody to do is to take. I know the 5. Is it okay to say who? I think I know who they are.
Well, she's an artist, and so she could make this happen.
Michelle Benzinger, you, Mary Bielski, Liv.
No, Liz, Sams, and Janine McCann.
Right. Okay. The Speaking of Sparrows people.
Yes.
Okay. So I got a 3 out of 5, so I got a 60 on my test.
Yes.
But I want them to like put your faces on like Captain Marvel and Okoye and like all of the female superheroes.
We would love that. We would really love that.
Somebody do it. We have some artists that listen. Let's make this happen. So I work these conferences all the time, either as a speaker or
By the way, Liv would fit in that group perfectly. I don't want to say, like, no. I'm sorry.
She's not welcome here. We do not do that here.
No, yeah.
That's a Marvel joke for all the Marvel fans. So I work these conferences all the time. And it was even acknowledged at the conference that a lot of people at the conference are in ministry or at least are around church all the time. Like even if people that don't work in ministry, the active volunteers. Like this is kind of like the cream of the crop, and then me. Like that's this conference, right?
Okay.
So the whole week, I'm exhausted because of the the sleep deprivation that God made me have.
Yeah.
Some of it was my fault, but whatever. But here's the deal: we go to the conference. I get there. I had been traveling all morning Friday. After I traveled to and from Houston, I got back at 12:30. Had to wake up at 6:30 and pack to get out of town to go to Dallas. I wake up, pack. Like my car, I have this little tiny silver car.
Yes, you
we
do.
have to pack it completely with an artist here that's in College Station that wanted me to bring her stuff up to the conference because you're selling it. My sound system, everything we need for the booth. Like my car,
Right.
I could see my front two mirrors and out of my front window, and that was it. There was a couple of times that I may have gotten waved at with a certain finger because I literally didn't see people. It was very dangerous,
yes.
but I came out alive. Exhausted. Get there, setting up everything. It's taking hours, and I'm not really a conference participant. I'm there to
receive.
I can't receive really.
Right.
I'm there to work.
Yeah.
In two capacities.
Right.
I'm leading this team that is helping run the youth trek the next day.
Yes.
What are you doing with your microphone? You're guarding it like you're.
I'm trying not to make noise as I bring it closer to me. Jeesh.
I thought you were it looked like you were going to kiss it. You were put your hand behind its head and you're going to bring it in for its little kiss.
I was trying to be very stealthy. Go ahead.
Well, I called it out. So the whole time, I'm all focused on this. I'm setting up blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then these two sisters walked by, religious sisters, not my sisters.
I got it.
Okay. And then they're like, "Hey, do you want to come pray Vespers with us later?"
Oh.
And I look at them and I say very honestly, yes, because if not, I won't pray today.
Okay, nice. I like it.
So guess where I went? To Vespers. They did praise and worship as the opening. There's the opening hymn in Vespers.
Mm-hmm.
They did 3 praise and worship songs, and then we did Vespers. It was cool. It was old school, new school. I loved it.
Yeah.
And then work all after that. Go to sleep. Wake up the next day because Saturday's the big day.
Okay.
Working all day at the conference.
Yeah.
And I even try to go to some of the breakout sessions. It's just not happening. My job's to make the connections and to talk to people.
Right.
Do my job.
Yes.
That's what I'm there for. And then I tried to go to one of the sessions, and it was supposed to be Mark Hart, and it wasn't Mark Hart. And this person was talking about a topic that I've talked about before that isn't my favorite topic. So I walked out, and I was like, this was sad. This was actually time that I wanted to be filled up, and it wasn't good. So I was like, okay, or it wasn't for me. It wasn't good for me. I'm sure the other men in there left super holy. But the whole day is going by. Again, I haven't prayed. Guess who walks up? The two sisters. Hey, we're going to pray Vespers.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're like, you want to pray with us? And they remembered our names. They gave me these things. They asked the one person that couldn't be there. They asked for him by name. Oh, he can't be there. Well, tell him we said hi and give him this wristband that has our order on it. Super sweet. I love these women. They're phenomenal.
Wow.
We pray with them. And I'm thinking, God, thank you for, I'm already God, thank you for the blessing. Again, the busyness of the day, I probably wouldn't have gotten my 30 minutes of prayer in if it wasn't for these sisters. Thank you. They were a super big blessing. We saw them throughout the conference. So much joy. Then, the big, Steubenville conference, it's Steubenville Young Adult Conference. Big adoration time happens. Mm-hmm. We missed the keynote talk because we're working. And then somebody's like, hey, you want to go up there? I'm like, yeah. There's nobody out here to talk to, which is my job. So let's go up there. Mm-hmm. So we go up there, adoration happens, and Annie Hickman, who's the MC, one of my favorite human beings alive, he's the one that acknowledges, look, we've all done this before. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of us, we've been to 10 Steubenville conferences, this isn't really special anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's still the Jesus, Jesus that walked on the earth, still the God creator of the universe. Yeah. And I'm like, cool, I'm gonna pray with that. Worship's going, and I'm like, I'm paying attention, and I'm in it, but it's nothing special. Right? And we get 30 minutes in adoration. Father Mike Schmitz is going around holding the monstrance. Super, there's just so many holy moments. And I'm sitting there halfway through, I guess I'm just too tired. I'm too focused on work. I can't, I'm trying to quote unquote get into prayer. And I just can't. And then there's this guy right in front of me. Father Mike brings Jesus right in front of us. It's me, another row, and then the opening where Father Mike's walking through. Mm-hmm. And the monstrance goes by me, and I'm praying and being respectful, but still it's nothing. It's not a special moment for me. Yeah. And there's this couple right in front of me. And I felt like I had been where they are. Like the young mom, young dad, and like a little tiny baby, like weeks old.
Brand new.
And like the mom is just sobbing. Because like, and I'm thinking like my wife has gone through having children. It's like, how do you even pray? Like, how do you even have a relationship with God when you have little kids? You've done this before. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, that's really cool that she's getting able to have this moment with God. Like, it's really special. And the dad is holding the baby. And then when Father Mike brings the monstrance, he holds the monstrance out, and the dad picks up the baby. I've never seen anybody do this. I get goosebumps even talking about it. Picks up the baby like Lion King style and puts the baby up and touches the baby to the monstrance, like full extension of the arms. And you can see him kind of like tearing up a little bit too. And like instantly, that moment, like that one guy doing that one thing, like I can't explain everything going on in my head. It's like, that is the Father's love for us. Like, that's how close he wants to be to us. Like, gorgeous. Whenever we can't, like the baby can't do anything on its own. It needs somebody to pick him up and put him close to Jesus. Like, that's what the Father's doing for us to Jesus. It's what Jesus is doing to us with the Father, with the Holy Spirit. Like everything is God is continually drawing himself to us and is giving us help, just like that Father did with the baby.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, it was ridiculous. I'm bawling at this point, and this is like a theme of the show. I don't cry. The last 3 weeks, I've talked about me crying. It's just utterly ridiculous.
You were even weepy dropping your littlest off on the first day of school.
I was. Yeah. It's apparently I have a heart now. Like,
I know.
I'm like
You've always been a teddy bear to me, but I get it.
My heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Yeah. There are these things that an enemy would love to use to keep us from God, to keep us from those awesome moments. And the word awesome is, overused, but like really that invoke this kind of holy terror of remembrance, And so for me lately, it's just it's been other Christians, to be honest. And I read this quote and it said, to not let your frustration with other Christians ruin your awe with Christ from Nazareth. And so any time that we can get into that still, quiet space, to remember, which it sounds like is exactly what you had. But, any time that we're still and we're quiet, we can ponder peace. And when we're doing that, it's usually because peace is wearing thin, So like here you were without a lot of sleep, and here I am, really frustrated with other people in this season of my life right now. And God's going to answer that desire of ours to be near.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think
so
that
kind.
Me, you, people that do this for a living, and we forget the basic gospel teaching that Jesus, God really does love us. And it was like in the middle of my exhaustion, in the middle of my frustration, in the middle of your going crazy, like he just wants to sit there and remind us, oh my goodness. He wants to remind us that he loves us. There's construction going on, and they're like yelling. My feet are vibrating.
I sure did think that was you.
Oh, no, it was not me. Wow, that would be impressive. I would totally do that. But, oh my goodness. The construction's almost over, people, in the stellically cosmic Red Sea Radio studios.
Astronomically.
But yeah, it was just like that he can love me in the midst of my busyness, in the midst of my tiredness, in the midst of like when I'm like, I can't bring everything that I have because I don't have everything that I have. In the midst of like being away from my family and like just a reminder that like he's got my kids. Like just like this is how Father's entrusting this baby. Like they're not my kids. They're his kids that I, get to take care of and hopefully not screw up, Yeah.
I think we need to lean into those moments of whether it's frustration or exhaustion or whatever. We lean into that. And I think that deep valley of emotion, because our emotions aren't bad, they just are. But when we lean in instead of trying to lop them off, I think that it paves the way for great joy. So deep, getting into the deep, I'm using air quotes, bad stuff can lead us to really, really highest heights of joy as well.
Well, maybe the construction is just us hearing your air quotes. Maybe that's what's happening. But yeah, people, Jesus really does love you. In the midst of everything that's going on, all the tiredness, all the you haven't prayed in a while, you haven't slept in 12 days because you have a newborn baby. Like, he loves you. He loves me. He even loves Allison. Wait, that was
Even.
backwards. I should have said even loves me. Allison even loves me, despite me being me. Guys, we're gonna
It's conditional.
We're gonna be right back with Mary Lenaburg. This is gonna be awesome. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. This is Taylor Schroll. I am still joined by the lovely Allison Sullivan. Allison, usually I'm the only person that does any work around here. Oh my goodness, I didn't unmute you. Now you can work because I unmuted you.
I never know if it's intentional or unintentional. It could go either way with you.
Well, that's a whole nother story, but we'll keep it where it is. So usually I do all the work. Y'all just show up and y'all are the pretty faces, the pretty voices. Everybody loves my co-host better than they love me. They love the guests better than they love me. But today you actually did some work.
I did.
You booked a guest.
I did. I had to bring on my sister from another mister, Mary Lenaburg.
Oh, Mary Lenaburg is here. Mary, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you guys?
Oh, just phenomenal. Allison is beaming ear to ear. She's so excited to not just be in this room with me.
Yay! I usually just do a crash course on whoever it is Taylor has brought in, but now I feel like, whether it's true or not, like I'm introducing the two of you. It's so fun.
The roles are flipped. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to be a good radio host, introduce who she is, and then get out of the way. And y'all are going to have a great conversation. Are you ready for this? So I learned this from the internet, which is where I learned everything. I love your description, Mary. You say that you are a writer, a speaker, and a daughter of God. I will only ever be one of those things, so I'm very proud of you.
Well, it took me a long time to come up with that description. Well, they were like, describe yourself. And I'm like, these are the things I do and who I am.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
That's it. You can find it all at marylenaburg.com. I first got in contact with you because of Allison and then our guest co-host Liv Harrison from the Genius Conference, and they just raved about you. They're like, this woman is amazing. And then Allison was like, you should have her on the show. And like, you are right, Allison. And it is rare that Allison is right on this show, but today she is. No, I'm just kidding.
So it was such a delight doing ministry with you, Mary. I feel like the Genius Conference was something really special. I personally love the combination of fierce and tender. And there was something that was so fierce about the women that were there, not just those of us that had the privilege to teach and speak, but also the women in attendance, and then yet so tender. It was like there was this ferocity for truth, and then there was this very tender space to come and meet and feel our feelings and handle our hurts and discover the God who's always waiting. So that was just so much fun. I loved meeting you.
There are so many things I could say about that weekend. I have been in ministry now publicly, like getting on a plane and going places for 3 years. And I have never experienced a ministry weekend like Genius.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah,
Where
I agree.
the speakers came from so many different backgrounds. And yet as women, we all are searching for that friendship with one another and with our Lord Jesus. And we all came together, and none of us had met before. None of us had really even spoken before other than some texting.
Right.
And what God did that weekend was just amazing. And I'm in awe of him. I'm in awe of him. It was beautiful. One of the things I loved so much about it was, as speakers, we were attending, like we were retreatants as well. I learned so much from you, my fair sister. First of all, I tried boxing. I died. Okay.
It's hard.
Miss Allison gets up on stage and she's got that, she is just preaching fire. And she's got these arms and they're like, oh. And I'm just looking at him going, how did she do that? And she started talking about how she started boxing. And so I thought, okay, I'll try it. So I got home, and about a month ago, I went to a boxing class.
Yeah.
All I have to say about that is you're insane. I said, I think I'm good. Nope. We're just going to let Allison cut arms, and I am good with the chicken wing. We're good.
Oh, Mary Lenaburg. So my favorite thing about your style, I want you to describe your style, but I think that you are gritty plus hilarious, which again is another one of my favorite combos. So how would you describe your style when you're up there preaching?
I'm a truth teller. I've been through a lot in my life, some of my own doing, some not. And I'm not afraid of other people's difficulty and hardship. but I tend to be one of those people that come in and speak truth in the situation. So I would call myself truthful. And I do love I love to tell a story. And yes, I am funny. Okay. I'll just claim it. I love, life is funny. I don't have to, all the stories I tell are true. And that's the amazing thing is you don't have to try to be funny. It's just tell the truth. And it's just amazing what happens.
And it usually is, right? You were such a matriarch for all of us that weekend at Genius, and you shepherded us all in a really individual way. And your humor just takes people by the collar in this really wonderful way, like that's nurturing and yet comforting. I used to teach school, and if I were in a faculty meeting, I would want to come sit by you. Like I think that you are a riot, and yet there's so much wisdom and truth telling, like you said. I think that you're a wonderful combination of everything that is good about femininity. So thank you.
That's just, proof that the kid that gets into trouble in school and gets detention and gets sent to the principal's office turns out pretty well later in life. So all those moms out there that are listening that are pulling their hair out right now with a really stubborn child, that was me. And I needed to find my place. And what I found was that if you tell the truth and if you open your arms wide and embrace whoever you're with, like be fully present to that person. Humor is just naturally part of who I am. God gave that to me.
Yes.
I didn't earn that, but it just, it just turns into what he needs it to be.
Right.
And so that weekend was so unique because we had everyone from, like I said, different seasons in life. And I'll never forget, I was sitting there and I'm listening to the women that are speaking before me. And I remember looking at you and Mary Bielski and going, what am I doing here?
Oh, same. I had that experience.
Going, I don't even I should go home now. I should go home and just start baking my brownies again because I looked around and I felt so, I was sitting at the seat of wisdom. I just felt so out of place. And Mary and both of you at the same time said the same thing.
Oh, Holy Spirit.
And you were both like, but Mary, you are, we're explaining what all of these things are in motherhood, in the spiritual motherhood, this physical motherhood. You have lived it.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the gift of being almost 52 years old.
Right.
I have lived a lot. And I can look back and I can look at my sisters, all of you that are standing just 10 years, 20 years behind me in the midst of the battle and go, it's okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to walk the walk that God has for you. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to have lots of ups and downs. Sometimes it'll totally suck noodles. But in the end, God is God and he remains in all things. And it was just such a privilege to be able to really preach with everyone because that's what we were doing.
Yeah. Well, Mary, nobody wants to be an expert on grief.
No.
And yet you have walked through and found yourself on the other side of some really serious grief. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your Courtney Elizabeth?
No, not at all. Oh my gosh, what a gift she was. Actually, we just celebrated what would have been her 27th birthday yesterday. So Courtney was born perfectly fine. And when she was 5 weeks old, she had her first grand mal seizure on the day of her baptism. And those continued. And as we tried to figure out what was wrong and try and stop the seizures, we gave her a medication when she was 7 months old that actually she ended up being allergic to, and her brain swelled, her body went septic, and she almost died. She lost her sight, and most of her disabilities were because of that medication and what it did to her brain. So we, over the course of the 22 years of her life, had a child who, was fully functioning in all of the bodily ways, but mentally and developmentally, she was a 5 to 7 month old child. So we loved her. It was, tough taking care of her every day. Everything needed to be done for her. But she's taught us, so much about how we love with our whole lives. Yeah. She taught us to see the face of Christ in every human being. She taught us what dignity of life truly means, to live that out loud, that every life has a purpose. Every single human has a mission that can only be done by them. And it doesn't matter their ability or their disability. God has provided for that within them. Courtney had everything she needed to do the job God gave her. Everything she needed. And the world looks at her and just looks and sees burden. But on December of 27th, 2014, she took her last breath this side of heaven. And this year we will celebrate 5 years without her physical presence in our life. And it's the worst nightmare of every parent. No parent wants to ever lose their child. But I, praise God, had 22 years, and I am so very grateful to the Lord for the time that we had with her. Not everybody gets that much time. But what we've walked through in the last 5 years has been just miraculous, really. I don't remember the first 6 to 7 months after her death.
Sure.
I remember basically Easter,
Yeah.
And then at that point, once you kind of come out of that first really hard shadow of grief, you have decisions to make.
Right.
Like,
yes.
how am I going to walk in this?
Right.
How am I going to get up every day and find a purpose for my life? Because for me, in one breath, literally, my life changed forever. I didn't have any other children behind Courtney, younger than her. My whole life was dedicated to caring for her.
Right.
So I had no job. I was fired. God fired me from my job as caretaker. And I really struggled. I really, really struggled. But God is good, and He provides for our every need. And what I've learned most about grief is that it becomes part of your story. It's like a winding rose bush, this beautiful thing that blooms with memory, but has those hard thorns that stick you. And they come at the most inopportune moments,
Yeah.
And that wave of grief will come over you, and you'll miss her so badly, and you'll cry and you'll be sad. And what I've learned is you have to sit in those moments. We can't be afraid to grieve what we thought would be.
Right.
We cannot be afraid of that. And in our society, so many people are afraid of the big feels,
Sure.
That's where we have anxiety and depression. Yes, there's biological things that contribute to that, but there's also this huge emotional thing that we don't want to feel the hurt or the pain.
Right.
And I myself dealt with that in my own life. And so we turned to addiction of things, the use of people, and it just, we have to be able to stand in the ashes. We have to be able to stand there and say, God is God, I am not. Courtney did not belong to me. She belonged to God.
Yes.
And her life was a gift. It continues to be a gift. Her story continues on after her. And my job as her mom is to just love her. And I still love her. And she is the best intercessor. I mean, that girl gets some stuff done. On the other side of heaven. And you just, I have to make a decision every day to live. She would be so mad if I just sat down, and that would really torque that child off.
Right.
Because she did everything she was asked of. She was the most beautiful suffering servant. And to have her mom go, yeah, I don't think I can do this, Court. I think I'm too sad. I could just hear her now. She would just be not pleased with me.
Yeah.
And so to honor her and the life we had together, I get up every day. And I choose to see the joy in my life, and I choose to love the people around me. And it's not always easy. And most times it's very messy, but grief is just part of the journey. You can be sad and joyful at the same time. I have been for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. As a person who doesn't feel like they've walked through a whole lot of grief, certainly not the way that you have, it's impossible to dodge that there's hurt in this world, but there's common hurt. And then there's uncommon hurt. And so maybe a common hurt, like a breakup or something. I mean, when you experience that, I'm sure people really want to speak into that and give you lots of advice because a lot of people have experienced it. But something that you're dealing with, I'm curious, as somebody who wants to be better at standing in the gap with someone and bearing one another's burdens, what was helpful for you during this time of grief and what was not helpful for you?
There are two things, really. What was helpful? To be present. Don't say to me or someone who's walking through this, let me know if you need something. No.
Right.
Show up and be there. Don't ask, just do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was the first thing, because as a grieving person, you are not going to want to be a burden. You are not going to want to ask anybody for help. And you add to that I'm half Irish, half German. I'm not asking anybody for anything. Okay. It's not happening. Just show up
Right.
and be present to them.
Yeah.
And if they don't want you there, do not be offended by that
Sure.
closed door. Do not take that personally. That just means on that day and that moment, it's too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make a meal. Do the things that our moms used to do. They would bring a meal. They would offer to run errands. But show up. Don't ask, just do. The second thing is, when you're with that person who is grieving, be fully present to them and let them talk about the person they've lost.
Right.
A lot of people don't want to talk about, like, people, when Courtney first died, nobody said her name.
Yeah.
I think they were afraid if they said her name, I would lose it.
That you would fall apart. Right. Right.
Yeah. And I respect that greatly, that they were feeling that sensitivity, but I needed to talk about her.
Yes.
And so I found people in my tribe that would sit there and we would just talk about Courtney for an hour.
Yes.
Tell stories about her, celebrate her, laugh, cry. And it was okay to be there. It made it easier for me to carry that burden of grief because I was sharing it with someone.
Yes.
So be that person that they can talk to about all the things. And if they have a day where they're like, today I just can't talk about it, cool. Same as the closed door. Then you don't talk about it.
Right.
But really, those were the two things that helped me tremendously. And now, of course, it's 5 years later, I'm in public ministry. There's a lot of people that never met Courtney. And so now they ask more questions than they ever did. So now I find myself talking about her every day, which is awesome for me. But a lot of people will ask, gosh, Mary, is that hard? Yeah. Well, sure. There are days where it's difficult, but she was our sunshine. And so to share her is easy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration. I really admire, in particular, how you have taken what was surely an expectation. I expect to see my child, grow up and do these very normal, typical things, and then reframing that to this was a gift. What we had was a gift. So thank you so much for your example. We would be remiss to not talk about your book.
I know we got to talk about it. So yeah, Mary, first of all, thank you so much for your time and for sharing from your heart, sharing from your difficulty. I want people to go really experience this story for their own. You have your book, Be Brave in the in the Scared. I read that wrong. Be Brave in the Scared. That's how you know I'm a church boy. How I learned to trust God during the most difficult days of my life. You can find all of that at MaryLenaburg.com. Thanks for sharing your story, and I'm glad Forte Catholic could be a place for all of us who are in the principal's office a lot. Thank you so much for coming today.
St. Courtney Elizabeth, pray for
Allison.
Yes.
You guys are great.
You're
Thanks,
awesome.
Mary.
Mary, thanks again. Everybody else, we will be right back for our final segment of the day, where Allison and I are going to talk about something that we really like to do. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. We're still here, baby. We're still here. I hope you enjoyed that lovely commercial, both for the podcast audience and for the radio audience. We put a lot of time into our commercials. Allison's on many of the commercials. She's amazing.
Am I?
You are. You don't remember when we made the commercials?
Yes, I remember. I'm just sad that you use them. No, I know I've listened to them. I don't hate them as much as I thought I would.
That's because you made me re-record them 18 times because
no,
you didn't like the first 17
I did no such
takes.
thing. Did you edit them though?
You yelled at me and made me not use the one that was actually really good.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you listened. I didn't think you would.
I did.
I'm glad to know that you listen to me occasionally.
So, I can tell when people are like, "Oh my gosh, that was terrible," and I'm like, "No, it was good," and you're like, "Okay." I can tell, you have pushback, but you were like, "Taylor." You got very serious.
I was not kidding.
Yeah, and it might have been.
I didn't know that you cared.
It might have
been
kidding. The most special moment we've ever shared together, and you won't let me air it. Anyway, let's talk about something else.
Okay.
Okay, so we want to talk about pre-evangelization. We've talked about this before, because essentially there are these stages, and people can look at the RCIA for this model, but even before the RCIA, it's it's kind of this whole idea of evangelization is kind of this overarching term
Right.
that encapsulates this entire process. Pre-evangelization, evangelization, I know it's confusing. It's part of the umbrella and under the umbrella, catechesis, and then like discipleship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So discipleship, we'll work backwards. Discipleship is like you are a follower of Christ. You are living for Christ. You're Christ-like, and you're trying to make other disciples. You have a dedicated prayer life, like all of the things,
Sure.
right? Catechesis, you're learning the stuff. Like you've already had the evangelization, like you've heard the initial gospel, and you're starting to learn more. It's the whole like every new thing you learn about God is another reason to love God. You're learning what it really means to attend Mass, to have a prayer life. You're learning things and incorporating into your life on your way to becoming a disciple. Evangelization is like hearing the initial gospel proclamation and responding to it. God loves you, has a plan for your life. He died for you. He loves you. You sinned. He knows that. He died for your sins anyway. So give your life to him and join his body, the church.
Mm-hmm.
You respond to that. You're on the next track. Boom. Pre-evangelization is the one that like a lot of people miss. It's this idea of like before you even get to like hearing the gospel message, like think about somebody who's like super antagonistic towards the gospel, or like they've literally never heard it before. Why the heck would they listen to you, Allison Sullivan, on a street corner preaching the gospel if you've never met this person before?
Right.
That was a question.
Oh, it was a real question. Yeah, I mean, I really think so. When I taught school before I was doing other things, but people would always ask me, "So, what's your teaching philosophy?" And you're supposed to have this really, very studious answer that proved that you've read textbooks and studied things. And mine was, I just try to make them like me. Because I feel like if they like me, then they're more likely to listen to what I have to say. And if they're likely to listen to what I have to say, then they might, like ingest something. They might kind of take something in and toss that around in their own head and ask questions or what have you. And so I feel like a lot of maybe this pre-evangelization, which I enjoy the parameters of each one. I think a lot of pre-evangelization is just creating safe space. Is just creating a friendly environment to know each other's names and offer very kind interactions without agenda. So Jean Vanier, which I'm going to pull up here in a minute as we talk, has a beautiful quote about exactly what this is.
Cool. And you actually almost quoted perfectly a church document on this.
Oh.
Evangelii nuntiandi, which is a word you shouldn't use while you're in pre-evangelization. That's a catechesis term. But it's this idea of talking about this pre-evangelization, that modern man listens more willingly to witnesses than to teachers, and they'll only listen to teachers if they're witnesses. So like how you live your life, the whole thing that you're saying, like if they like me, like if we start to build a relationship, that building of the relationship of trust, where they're like, this is a person that I am willing to listen to just in general, then they'll be willing to listen to the gospel and actually hear it. Actually, you know what I mean? Instead of just listening.
Yeah. We were created to belong. We were created to belong to one another. And the Lord really desires for us to be one. So if we could, really get to the root of what we need as people, which is to belong. If we could create a space, a lot of times it's like, oh, well, I don't feel welcome in church. I really think that we need to ask ourselves the question of, well, are they? I think that there are a lot
you are feeling may be accurate.
Right. But so here's
the
this
symptoms
quote.
are.
It says, I don't think the first form of evangelization is to proclaim Jesus. The first form of evangelization consists in offering everyone a place where they can laugh, dance, celebrate, and experience a sense of belonging. Joy comes from the feeling you belong to a community, from being happy together, from no longer being alone. The greatest means of evangelization we have today is small communities where there are happy, joyful people who care for one another. And that's Jean Vanier, and he created L'Arche, and he's just a mentor of mine. He recently passed away and is a lovely Catholic man.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Yes.
I got in trouble the other day for pronouncing his name wrong, and now the people are going to yell at you, I think.
Oh, good. Is it Jean?
Jean Vanier.
Jean Vanier.
From L'Arche. That's how they told me to say it. So I'm just making fun of them.
It's not Jean Vanier.
Jean Vanier. Listen here, boy. I'm going to tell you about how to evangelize. You can take them out in the woods, you threaten them, and if they don't say... We're not going to finish that story. Okay, so...
but we do use scare tactics. We use scare tactics, and it's just not...
Would you like to enjoy hell?
Yeah.
If not, come to our church this Sunday.
And when
At
I say
7:30
we,
a.m.
I mean a universal we, just like I mean a universal you. I'm not
The
pointing,
royal we?
No. But I don't want to point a finger at any, one church or even one denomination or one anything. I just think it's human nature that once we have something figured out, we kind of insist that everyone else get it figured out quickly, just the way we did.
Well, you can blame whoever you want. I'm going to stick with the royal we and just blame all of Britain for this. It's all Britain's fault.
Perfect.
So you talked about these small communities where people can feel welcome, can feel loved, and then where they can then hear the gospel and actually be ready for it, right?
Yes.
So you and I have been on this project for a while that has been a thing on your heart for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't on mine, and then you told me, and I was like, actually, it has been. Like, I didn't know it was.
I totally see you lining up with this mission. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad because I've been doing it for a few months now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's terrible, but he's still around.
We're roping him in.
Right. So we started this thing called The Well here locally. I want you to talk about it. I mean, you kind of already did, but explain how what you just shared connects to The Well and what it's actually doing for this pre-evangelization, evangelization.
Mm-hmm. I became a Christian as a young person, and initially found God through the prayers of my mom, and then more personally through a high school ministry called Young Life. But became Catholic in meeting my husband and in knowing my husband and falling in love with my husband and being curious about his spirituality and us reading together.
I just wanted you to keep saying the word husband.
Husband. He's husband when I'm mad at him. He's boyfriend when all is well. But started reading and really fell in love with Catholic doctrine and spent a lot of time leaning in to the parts of Catholicism that were fascinating to me and even the parts of Catholicism that were uncomfortable for me. And I desperately longed for a lot of other people that I was walking with spiritually to be able to experience what I knew and was coming to know to be very beautiful to me. And I found it hard to invite them to things like Mass or adoration because there was so much background knowledge that I felt like those things required. So as beautiful as Mass was to me, as reverent as it is, as solemn as it is, as gorgeous as it is, it didn't feel very evangelical. And so I've been longing for a place to invite friends, a Catholic space to invite friends, and that would eventually lead to those things, that would eventually lead to Mass, that would eventually lead to adoration. So, because I feel like a lot of times we can go straight from interest to catechesis. And it's like, wait, that's too quick. So I love this.
You came to church once. Let me teach you about Evangelii Nuntiandi.
Exactly. So I love this space for exactly what it is, which is informal, and so we're embracing that, we're leaning into this informality. It is not church. It is not Mass. We need to go to church. We need to go to Mass on Sundays. But this is just a little supplemental time to come together as a community and laugh with one another and be joyful. I feel like your podcast does such a great job of embracing the joy. I think that you repeat a quote often about how we can just be a little too somber sometimes. I remember when I was first coming to Mass, I felt like everybody was mad at me and I didn't know why. I felt like I was doing everything wrong. And so you will not feel that way. And by the way, I eventually ended up learning that it was reverence. People were reverent. They were not mad at me.
Well, it might have been a little bit of both. Knowing Catholics, it was probably a little bit of both.
I did have some rowdy kids. Along in tow. But so this is not that. This is not that. So come as you are, bring a friend. Absolutely everyone is welcome. And that's not just metaphorical, like actually, literally everyone is welcome. And just relaxed environment to come and hear the gospel.
Yeah, so what we're doing is it's on Wednesday nights here locally in Bryan. We're meeting in downtown Bryan called the Cotton Exchange. It's like this fourth floor of this building in downtown. It's so much fun. There's windows everywhere, which makes it difficult for me, the guy setting up for tech stuff. Oh, how can we see the words when there's windows? It's okay. I got you. I got this hall taken care of. But we gather, we do worship. People love when you come on this show and get on your soapbox. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, look at over there, something silly that's Catholic, and then like you start clapping your hands and you're like, saying some real gospel point. And like, oh, that got serious very quickly. People love it.
Gesturing wildly.
Well, if you want to see this live, you can come do it. Allison, you're one of my favorite preachers, period. Like in the world.
Thank you. Praise God.
You were doing it this semester. You were absolutely
Thank
rocking.
you. Glory to God. Thank you.
So yeah, if people want to join us here locally, if you are here or if you're like in the towns around, you want to come like in for the day,
right?
You can stay with me. You can stay with Allison.
Yes.
I just offered that without asking, but
as you should.
She has a cool house.
I was offering rides. I'm like, I will come and pick you up to come join us at the well.
Yeah. Come join us. It's a lot of fun. So we had the first one in August, and I want you to. You were really excited about how it went. I want you to share some of the fruit that you saw of this kind of like worship, preaching, small groups, pray, and break.
You know, the room was just abuzz with the Holy Spirit. I always get nervous about turnout. You always make fun of me for being nervous about turnout.
I always make fun of you, period.
Well, yes, but and then more so when I start worrying about nobody's gonna show up.
Because I'm always right, Allison.
You like Three Stooges slap me around. You're like, oh my gosh, be quiet. So the room was abuzz, like I said, with the Holy Spirit, and we had to really kind of kick people out. I mean, it was just a really beautiful night of people gathering together. We had to make them, quit talking. I had a personal thing.
Yes. We had to make them quit talking. Sounded very unwelcoming. This was because at the end of small groups, we were worried that 30 minutes was too long. We had to make them stop talking at that point because we had to end. That's what you meant.
That is what I meant. Thank you for clarifying. Yes,
No,
right, exactly. Shh. Thank you. No, but we were having to really draw people, focus. Hey, because people were enjoying one another's company so much. So I had a personal neat situation happen. I can't go into too much detail. Just I'll veil it a little bit. But essentially, God is working in a young woman's life, and all things came together for us to meet again, pretty much coincidentally. And anyways, this feels like an answered prayer for her in her faith. She was becoming a little disinterested with her Catholic faith, and just feels like the Lord is really pulling her back in, and in a small way using the well to do it, which is beautiful, of course.
Yeah,
so
that's phenomenal. So kind of to wrap this up, we talk in youth ministry all the time, like just at work, about having on-ramps for people and how essentially like this whole, if you picture like faith as like a spiral staircase that you're wanting to go up on, and like if catechesis is up there somewhere, discipleship is up there somewhere. But if you don't have an on-ramp, a way to get on everywhere, like if there's not floors along the stairs,
that's good.
With on-ramps, there's no way that people are ever going to get to the top, right? So a lot of times with our ministries, like you said, we jump straight into the catechesis, but there wasn't the on-ramp, so they don't really feel like they can get up there, right? So that's what this is. It's an on-ramp of pre-evangelization leading into evangelization, doing those two things. And then hopefully like people that are Catholic and kind of like bored in their faith or like not super into the faith can be revitalized, that new evangelization, and then like return to that catechesis, that discipleship. Or for people who have never really been evangelized, they come in, they become part of this community, they get evangelized, and then eventually start going to mass, start getting plugged into RCA, start getting plugged into adult ministries or youth ministries or whatever the case may be. So that's the well. I have to end the show today with some due diligence because I'm a bad person. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've had these patrons on Patreon for quite some time. You should know because you're one of them. So that I've never, like, since the beginning, I think like the first few people. So I think you got your thank you a long time, but I'm going to do it anyway. These are the people that support the show that essentially keep it going because like I'm using all this to pay for everything that I need to pay for all the design stuff, for all the website stuff, for hosting the podcast, for hosting the website, for all the stuff that Forte Catholic needs to keep going. Patreon.com/Forte Catholic. These are the people that are supporting you. I think you were the first one after my mom. I think it was my mom and then you. Allison Sullivan. Barb. I love Barb. Barb Gibson Benninger. Brian Baudouin. JP Quinn. My mom. Father Anthony. Father Anthony actually supported, both of you supported before you became co-hosts. Like you were like actually liked the show. That's fantastic. Spencer Foger, Teresa Zoe Williams, and Trent Miles. Thank you so much. This is your official thank you because I'm a bad person. I haven't done it in so long. Allison, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thanks. Always a good time.
You are a person that I enjoy. Did you know that?
Well, thank you.
Guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Next week, come back. Episode 150. It's going to be an absolute blast. I'm so excited to show y'all like all the new logos, all the new merch. I'm literally beside myself. I cannot wait. Tune in then. But you know how we do it. Until next time. See ya! All right, it's our last one, Allison. You don't have to be stressed out anymore.
No, I'm sweating. Literal sweat in my literal armpit.
Well, I've got nothing to help you out there, but are your feet sweating?
No, what? No.
Well,
Actually, I just checked. Yes.
They are?
Yes.
Are you lying now? Because you said that they weren't.
No, come here.
No, thank you. I don't want to. I never want to touch your feet or socks, but I can buy you some new ones. I'll touch those before I give them to you. ForteCatholic.com/socks. I can get you some sock-religious socks.
Featuring Jesus.
Oh, my gosh. Maybe when you said you weren't good at these commercials, you were right. I should have listened to you.
Some totally holy footwear.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. I'm going to go punch myself into that wall over there. That didn't make any sense. But
Oh, my gosh.
great saints, the Jesus, who's my favorite Jewish Catholic. You can get all these socks to make yourself look good and feel holy. You can be reminded to pray whenever you look at your sweaty toes with the stray hairs on them. ForteCatholic.com/socks.